Hi everyone. In our previous video, we tackled coding qualitative data. We also need to know how to deal with numbers. Before we start, it's still important that you can differentiate summary from analysis. If you struggle with that, make sure to review it from the previous video. If you just list numbers from your survey or your artifact assessment, the reader won't know what to do with them. If you just tell them 5 or 50%, what does that mean? You will still need to analyze the numbers. So when you get a number or a graph, you'll need to interpret it first. You need to tell me what that number means or represents. Whereas qualitative data does this with a code, quantitative data will rely on things like, does this number represent a consensus? Does it show that everyone's in agreement? Can the number represent the majority or minority view? What kind of range do the numbers show? Are people similar or spread out in responses? Kind of like the graph here on this side. Is there a certain kind of trend or pattern that appears? Can you make any connections or comparisons between data? And finally, are there any unexpected results in your data set? You can answer these questions by thinking of the number in context. For example, if I say 1 in 12 vending machines break within a year, is that a lot? Probably not. How often do you use a vending machine or see a vending machine? What if I said, though, 1 in 12 airplanes break within a year? Is that a lot? Probably is. Airplanes are used much more often and have more serious purpose than a vending machine. Knowing the frequency of maintenance issues is much more relevant. As you do research and become more informed about a topic, you'll usually have a hypothesis about data, what kind of number you expect to see, or what threshold you have for data. You could also do statistical analysis here with your data, where you put numbers through an equation and then get new numbers like a p-value, a confidence interval, or an estimate. We aren't going to do statistics in this course though, because I'm not qualified to teach it, nor do I want to teach it. Let's stick just to working with raw data and descriptive statistics, things like means, percents, ranges, and totals. Once you determine a number and what it represents descriptively, it can then be applied to a population and its impact can be determined. Here are some examples of interpretations. The underlined text is from the data collection. It was a Pew Research study on YouTube. The bolded text, though, is the interpretation. For the first example, the researchers found that over 48,000 hours of video content was published on YouTube within the first 7 days of 2019. What does 48,000 represent here? Is that a lot? Not a lot? Is that a normal amount of hours? The authors decide that yes, this is a vast quantity of content, determined in their interpretation that this is a lot of hours. Let's look at the next one. The researchers say that 17% of YouTube channels are entirely in English, and 72% of channels use another language. Is that a lot of channels? Not a lot? Is this expected? The authors determined this is an unexpected result, and a significant unexpected result. They were expecting most channels to be in English, so that 17% is a significant number and worth analyzing. Just like qualitative though, something was still missing. We didn't have a conclusion. We broke things down into numbers and we found a relationship between the numbers, but now we need to make a conclusion. We need to answer, so what? Here's an example of a conclusion. According to a 2009 U.S. Department of Agriculture report, about 2.3 million people in the U.S. live more than a mile away from a supermarket and don't have reliable vehicle access. If they don't own a car, they have to find a ride, take public transit, walk or bike to the closest store. The trip takes time, money, and energy, and can be especially taxing for people who are older or have physical disabilities. We see in the example in red, we have our results. We have the 2.3 million. You can find it right away with the number. But what does that 2.3 million mean? Is that a lot? And why should I care if it's a lot? That's how we get the trip takes time, money, and energy. It can be especially taxing for people who are older or have physical disabilities. It is in this blue section that we take that number and determine its consequence or impact. Again, we're going to need to practice because we can't improve unless we practice. The quiz this week will have some quantitative data for you to look through. Read through the results and graphs. Interpret the results, looking for things like majority, minority, unexpected data. Then you'll need to make a conclusion. Just like the qualitative data, there are resources in Canvas, files, Unit 1 analysis, that can give you examples and help guide you. Even though Project 1 is all qualitative data, you will probably be doing something quantitative for your bigger project or another future project. It will be very helpful to make sure you know how to analyze both sets of data.